Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia moguls.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
With one of my favorite people, probably somebody more responsible for me even being here than you can imagine. I won't even get into the long dance on it because basketball, the love story, is maybe some of the best TV I've seen. If you're a hoop junkie, or if you like hoops, you like the NBA, college, or any part of the game, stay right where you are, don't move. First of all, Basketball, the Love Story, Jackie McMullen wrote it with Dan Klores, my guest. Stop what you're doing, click right now, go pick up that book. If you're a basketball fan or you need a quick gift for a basketball fan, that's the book. By the way, my new book's coming out next week too, Living on Purpose. Little basketball in there as well. But more
buy my book first.
More importantly, buy his book first, and don't even buy a book. Buy at least 3. One for you know is a big basketball fan, and for somebody that maybe doesn't even deserve it, but you'd like to do something nice for. Basketball, the love story. Dan, I gotta tell you, you are a very deranged, very unusual human being. Because I don't know how you put together what you put together. It's insane. I mean, how? First of all, why? Why?
20 hours, 10 parts. I'll tell you what happened. I wanted to do this movie years ago, 10 hours. I went to Adam Silver, head of NBA Entertainment then, and Jeff Zucker, head of NBC. They liked it. They sent me to Dick Ebersol, who's chairman of NBC Sports. And Dick Ebersol, I knew Dick, unbelievably bright, obviously a legendary television executive.
His son's starting the AAF, the new football league.
Okay.
So he's got his hands in the mud again.
Just a
talented
super
guy.
person.
Oh, no question.
Brandon, I went to the meeting, I pitched it, right? Guy walks me out at 30 Rock, puts his arm around me, big, he's about 6'4". He's so slick and smart and savvy, I had no idea he turned me down. I was feeling great until I got to the door.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that because a lot of people watching this have entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah.
That's a very entrepreneurial idea. Yeah. You had produced a few 30 for 30s already.
No, this is many years ago.
Oh, many years.
Many years. And I direct these films, Fuck, can I curse?
Yeah, you can curse.
Yeah, fuck producing. Okay. So then I went to ESPN.
So you got to know.
Yeah, I got to know. ESPN, John Skipper said, yes, we want to do this. I had done the Emil Griffith story. I had done Viva Baseball, and I'd done The Boys of Second Street Park. So Skipper said yes, 10 hours, 5 parts. I started doing all the research, all the reading. I think I know a lot, but when you start reading, you just learn so much. And a couple of months later, he said, Dan, I'm sorry, we don't have the budget. So we struck out. But then he said, but I want to work with you. What else do you want to do? We can't do 10 hours. So I came up with the idea of Black Magic. 4 hours, 2 parts, no commercials. Civil rights movement told to the lives of basketball players and coaches from historical black colleges only. It won them the Peabody. They had never won a Peabody, ESPN. And it's the genesis for 30 for 30. Documentary films. Simmons was there, Connor Shell, Skipper. It was a great team at that part. Let's do 30 for 30.
Was Bill a catalyst in making that happen?
Wonderful.
He's a hoop junkie.
He was a friend of mine since Viva Baseball. I knew of him. I'm not an online guy, so I wasn't reading his stuff, but I'd read it in the ESPN magazine, and it was really funny and bright. And I never met him. He came to the premiere of Viva Baseball with some of your guys were there. Orlando Cepeda, Juan Marichal, they were all there.
Unbelievable.
Right? And by the way, you've been a tremendous help to me in many ways. You should be so proud of yourself. I can't believe this place. I mean, it's
I can't believe we're having this moment.
Yeah.
Because, I tell people that I should come in your office, and we used to brainstorm, and we'd end up, and 30 minutes was always basketball. Then we brainstormed, and the ideas that would come out of your mouth were like, how did I even think of it?
Yeah.
But
anyway, go back.
You've been amazing.
I go back, they win the Peabody. I do the Reggie Miller movie, and here's what happened.
The Reggie Miller, by the way, was unbelievable.
It's fun.
Reggie was funny.
But see, people don't. I made it as an operatic comedy, and no one has ever even written that. They don't get it. It's opera.
I got it. It was funny.
It's opera.
And I was with Mason at the premiere, sitting next to him.
Oh, okay.
And he was laughing.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I told him to stop laughing, dude, because I don't know how you passed that ball.
For a documentary film, the premiere you were at, 1,700 people, Ziegfeld Theater in Manhattan, 9,500 people, Conseco Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, 9,500 people for a 75-minute documentary film.
Wow.
The Simon family did it as charities for local charities out there. It was great. And so 5 years ago, I won't get into any of the details. I'm an older guy with 3 young boys. I had a crisis in my life, a bad crisis, and I needed a distraction. I never wanted to do anything in sports anymore. Nothing. I'd written 3 off-Broadway plays. I don't want to touch sports. I don't want to be seen as, this guy just does sports. Because Crazy Love won the Independent Spirit Award, had nothing to do with sports. And even Ring of Fire, to me, it's all about,
And by the way, you had a nice career prior.
I had a good career prior.
In public relations.
Public relations and marketing.
We won't go down that road, but pretty good.
Pretty good, thank you. And so I went back to Skipper. I said, I want to do this. 10 hours, 5 parts. He said, yes. Now I had to do something I never done before. A budget. I never worked. My deal's handshake. No matter who it is. Handshake. Now that Disney's involved, there's a budget. The 10 hours became 12 when I'm researching it. Who am I going to interview? What am I going to do? Here's what I said. You're a big baseball guy. From the start, I said, Brandon, I'm not doing Ken Burns. Without Ken Burns, I don't have a career in filmmaking because I knew him and he was very supportive, as was his tremendous partner, right? Lynn Novak. Unbelievably supportive.
Really?
100%. But I said, I'm not doing Ken Burns baseball, which to me was chronological, by the decade, little vignettes.
To go back to the beginning and how they got the straw basket or the.
Right. If I began with Naismith, I'd turn it off. That's what I felt, right? So I said, I'm going to do short stories. And if I was to say to you, take your time, spend 5 days coming up with 50 or 60 short stories about basketball, you'd come back with a list. I made my own list. Who I have to interview. So the process began. So 10 hours became 12. They didn't give me any more money. 14 hours, listen to this. Skipper and Connor, after ESPN, in my view, it's better now, but they fired Simmons, which I thought was a really poor act. Right?
He was big.
It was all personalities.
And also, NBA was such a big part of ESPN.
You know what happens when you start, in any field, you start getting bigger than your boss, something happens. People need to understand that.
It's true.
Yeah. So it wasn't right. But anyway, I'm out with Connor and Skipper at Bob Iger's home in L.A. He was gracious enough to have me there to show him a couple of scenes, rough scenes of the film. This is 3.5 years ago. And he had a new screening room in his home. A really delightful guy. Never met him. His 2 sons were there. And he helped me because I was going to animate more than I have in the film, only one scene. And he said, don't animate, he's the chairman of Walt Disney telling me not to animate, so I'm smart enough to listen.
Yep, never tell a tale how to alter your pants. Yeah.
We get back in the car, me, Skipper Connor, and my assistant, Lloyd Lockridge. Skipper, genteel, mid to late 50s, from the state of North Carolina, University of North Carolina graduate, bleeds blue, says he's driving the car. He says, Dan, even though, and he's well-read, even though I'm a big UNC fan, my favorite player when I grew up was from NC State. I'm sitting in the back. I said, John, if I guess the name of that player, don't give me a hint, I get an extra 2 hours? Oh, well, of course, you'll never guess it. I said, Eddie Biedenbach. Film became 14 hours. He almost crashed the car, man.
Now, Eddie Biedenbach, explain.
Eddie Biedenbach was the point guard at NC State in the mid-'60s, the only college that I could get into, is South Carolina. I wasn't a terrible student in high school, but I had other interests and I had real issues, really significant issues.
That's why we get along so well.
Yeah, really significant
and a lot of people
issues.
watching. I mean,
I had a 99 average in the 7th grade, and when I graduated Lincoln High School in 1967, I got a 40 in one subject and a 0 in another.
So you probably had a hard time getting to class.
I had a hard time getting to class. I had a hard time doing a lot of things.
I went to an experimental school, John Dewey, in Coney Island. I was supposed to go to Lincoln.
My brother went there, yeah. Right.
And that was a brand new school back then where you were.
Brand new, right. I know exactly where it is. Down a block from where when we moved around there, you know? So anyway.
What college did you end up going to, by the way?
South Carolina, but it took me 8 years to get a bachelor's degree. I went into the Army in between. You know, my hair was down to here. I went cross country. I flunked out of South Carolina twice. You got to flunk out of the University of South Carolina 2 times.
Wow.
And then the president gave me a dinner a couple of years ago, man.
How funny is that? You're hanging out with the champ.
But South Carolina is funny because
I love it.
Because they had great teams when I was there. I wasn't good enough to play there. I mean, as ACC, they were #1 in the country. They were rated ahead of UCLA. 1970. They were rated.
You must have been in your glory with South Carolina.
Absolutely.
The women's and men's team.
Yeah, of course. That's when I met Frank McGuire, who I wrote a book on. Donnie Walsh, to this day, one of my best friends. Ben Jobe. I dedicate this film, Basketball Love Story, to Ben Jobe, the first black coach ever down there. Passed away a year and a half ago. He was like my father. I dedicate the film to my father and to Ben Jobe.
Wow.
You know, I love Ben to death. And
that's ballsy, though, from Brooklyn going to South Carolina, though. I got to tell you.
Especially Jewish. Are you kidding me?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if people really can
They don't get it, man.
They don't get that.
People talk about anti-Semitism. You kidding me? And I didn't go to synagogue. Did you when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did.
I
Not often, but I did go a decent amount.
I never went.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I didn't have food, but we went to synagogue.
I never went. I didn't. You know, maybe we did the Shabbos dinner every when my grandparents were alive. You know, like the idea of the Jewish New Year was a drag because you couldn't play ball. You had to get dressed up and walk on the boardwalk instead of play. Right? You know.
I went to synagogue to pray for food. And because they serve food after the service.
Yeah, that's right. You were poor. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Brooklyn.
Well, where?
Flatbush, Kings Highway, Ocean Parkway.
And what did your parents
Played a lot
do?
of ball, by the way, down in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, which I played all the time. What did your parents do?
Well, I don't know what my father did.
Yeah, is that right?
And he left this planet way before I could figure it out.
Yeah.
When I was young, my mother owned a salon. She was a travel agent.
Where on Flatbush
Avenue in Nostrand. A travel agent. East Second and Kings Highway was the salon.
I know it well.
Right near the L.
I know it well.
Yeah,
I know it well.
You know Lou's Deli.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a pizza place there too, but
Johnny's Pizza.
Yeah, right.
How good was Johnny's?
Yeah.
If you don't have anything to do, don't do it here. My favorite sign.
But
Classic.
That's it. And we grew up
right across the street from the Carvel on Kings Highway, if you remember that.
100%. Kings Highway we used to go because the prettier girls Kings Highway. So you know.
Well, the Syrian girls.
Yeah, we used to call them SYs.
Yeah, the SYs. Yeah. They would never go out with you. And if they did,
you know, I had a Syrian girlfriend once.
Yeah.
And she was sweet, Joyce Sasson. But who remembers? So where were we? So
South Carolina.
So I get down there and you know it was great. It was great, and I met a lot of friends there. Anti-Semitism down there was unbelievable.
When you put this film together, how do you get down to that few? Because there's so many stories. And what was your favorite story?
I don't know if I have a favorite story.
Okay.
I knew that I was not beginning with Naismith. I knew that I didn't want to do this chronologically. Soon after I figured it out, I said, this is a love story. Basketball, a love story. Because my unwritten thesis is that unlike any other game, basketball has this addictive, obsessive component to it. Whether you're LeBron James or whether you're Brandon Steiner or Dan Klores or a crazy guy calling talk radio all the time, or a fan or a gambler, you know, or a park player, it becomes an obsession. That's why you have songs, Basketball Jones. You know, that's why you have expressions. He's a hoops addict. No one goes around saying, "Oh, baseball Jones, football addict." Right?
There's something about basketball. Maybe there's just so many ways to play it, attack it,
the
deal with it.
nakedness, because little Brandon Steiner and now girls and every boy and now every girl that wants to go play basketball, it's an escape. You could do it by yourself. You could fantasize. I'm this. Who did you fantasize you were?
Oh, I was Clyde.
So you were
and a little bit of Earl for a while.
Out in a court, and you weren't Brandon Steiner having to go home and where the fuck is my father? You weren't that. You were Clyde.
Oh, no question. Number 10.
You were happy, and you pretended. And what comfort did that give you?
Hours.
And then you meet teammates. These are friends for life.
Oh, I played ball with more people. Still to this day, I'm playing twice a week.
Exactly right.
I play twice a week.
So that's what the game gives you. and it's
true.
And because it's naked, no helmets, no shoulder pads, no baseball caps, there's a beauty to it. My film says it's an art form. If on a certain level, it's an art form, and so I fell in love with it, and that's the point. My point is, it always gave me an escape from the time I was 11 or 12 to this day. That was my escape. Things weren't working out, issues of self-worth, right? Gave me that escape. Now I have a crisis in my life. I'm not aware of this. What's going to give me this escape? So I did this film, and it worked.
There's no question. I mean, I actually thought I was going to play in the NBA when I was a kid.
Of course.
Didn't you?
You
Did you think that?
fantasize
Yeah.
about it.
I thought if I worked hard enough and played hard enough.
I'm going to play at NYU or St. John's in those days when they were great. I grew up. We did 165 interviews. The average interview was 2 hours and about 25 minutes. Russell for 5.5 hours interviewed him in his home. Oscar for 6. And I did 120 odd of the 165. Other unbelievable team of superstar journalists that I formed to do the other 40. The one guy that how about this? I'm 68 years old. I was afraid to interview Bill Bradley.
Why?
Because that's who I grew up and idolized completely, man.
Number 24?
I couldn't do it, man. So Liz Robbins of the New York Times did, and she did a brilliant job, man.
Wow.
I met him a couple of times.
Yeah. Now, was there anything shocking when you get into, particularly with the Oscar, Bill Russell, and anger? Can you sense the frustration?
Well, of shocking, absolutely not. Moving, revealing. Well, of course, and new. For instance, in the film, there's and I use them both. I cut back and forth. Not everyone. The general feeling is that Abe Saperstein of the Harlem, the founder and the creator of the Harlem Globetrotters, was gracious and giving and big to black athletes, and in many ways he was. And the Trotters, people would not know this. The Trotters from the 30s to the early 50s. Not only were they better than NBA teams, they were the draw. Like the Celtics would have a doubleheader, and the only way people would stay is if the Trotters were the second game. That's a fact, and that's in the film. That's a fact, right?
Wow.
And that's a fact. The Trotters won the World Championship of Basketball, an annual tournament in Chicago in the 40s. So did the Harlem Wrens. Once the black team started winning, they cut the tournament. There was no more World Championship of Basketball. No more, right? So now Russell wins the Olympic gold medal, 55 games in a row at the University of San Francisco, 2 consecutive NCAA titles.
Did you talk about that?
Well, this is where I'm getting. We talk about all of this. That's what I'm getting to. We talk about all of this. And Abe Saperstein comes to, this is the part, comes to him and says, I'd like you to come to the Trotters. And all this is in the film. He says, well, I don't know. He says, well, I'll give you $50,000. $50,000 in 1956. I don't even know. You're smarter than me. What is that? It's how many millions, right?
It's a couple $1 million.
Yeah,
Give him a couple $1 million.
Right. So Russell says, well, okay, let's talk. I'd like you to meet my father. And they get together with the father. And Saperstein says, well, I spoke to your son. We're going to give him $17,000. So the father says, wait a second. You told my son 50. He says, so right away, now that's not going to happen. That deal's not going to happen, right? But then Saperstein, this is in the film, says to him, I'll tell you what. The father leaves the room. You sign with me, and I'll make sure, and he takes out a picture of this African-American movie star, a woman, and I'll make sure that she meets you at every city, at every place in this world that you go to. Yes. And Russell on camera says, at that moment, I said to this man, what would make you think that I would want to be with a woman that you can make do that? I'm not signing with you. And they offered, and it cut to Oscar. They offered Oscar $50,000 also, and he said, no way. No way. There were many there were no avenues for black players, very few.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the NBA had a severe quota system, right? And the Eastern League, it was a weekend league. You make $100, $150 for 3 games, 4 games. You gamble. You bet on your own games, or dump games. Who knows?
Who knows? And what was your take on the women?
Well, here's the deal.
What was your view on that?
I began the film, Brandon, thinking that basketball mirrors a history of race relations in America. And remember, I did Black Magic, so I'm pretty well versed in that. And I'm what's called BD in American history, everything but dissertation. I have all those degrees, and I didn't quite finish my dissertation. But then I was serious. Okay, so with a minor in African American history. So I knew this, but I also knew. Remember, it's not chronological. I'm not boxing women in. I'm not going to do. Here's my 5-minute scene on women in this 20-hour movie. There's no way I'm going to do that. It just felt boring. I have to include women throughout the entire piece, women coaches, women players. But then, and I didn't do this interview, Jackie McMullen or Doris Burke interviews Val Ackerman. Now, I know because I had a list of about 20 women we wanted to interview. I know Val for years, which is the reason I didn't interview her, right? And I get back the transcript, and I'm reading it, and I start crying. Because if you close your eyes and you listen to the audio of the interview, or you read you're hearing black voices. Same thing. You're the outsider. We're not allowing you in. You can't help us. Stay away. You're not good enough.
Yet the game is so good.
This is the history of women's basketball. So then it was like a breakthrough for me. So yes, women are cut throughout the whole piece. Lisa Leslie, Taurasi, a genius, Nancy Lieberman.
How was Nancy?
Off the charts, beyond great.
Love Nancy.
And
was pivotal when you think in women's basketball for so long.
Meyer, Cheryl Miller, Woodard. One after another. They told me that I had to get this great coach from Immaculata College who won 3 championships, Kathy Rush, married to an old NBA referee, Ed Rush. Marriage didn't last. It was great, and women throughout the whole piece. And there's 6 different stories on women in the film. So there's 62 stories. 6 are just on women, and women are integrated to the piece. My scene on Gino and Pat. Oh man,
I caught that.
Hated each other.
Oh, hated it, but I loved it. They didn't hide it.
They didn't hide it.
They didn't hide it.
And
I'm a big Pat Summitt fan.
And
by
you
the
know
way.
what?
You'll see her basketball in my gym.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I love Pat.
She was so ill. Jackie McMullen said to me during the process that I can come down and interview her. Sally Jenkins remained very, very, very close to her. Obviously, her son did. And Jackie's friends with Sally Jenkins, and they said, you can come down and, to be a controlled environment, of course. And you know what? I decided I wasn't going to do that. I felt like she has Alzheimer's. I don't want anyone to see her like that.
Yeah. And she did a good job in doing what she could do while she could do it. But she made her mark. And that's really what people have to realize. In today's world, it would be interesting to see her be able to keep going and battling with him and everything else.
Well, it poses this question.
You don't want to be in a dark alley with her.
You are the first, absolutely correct. You're the first person I'm asking this question to, okay? Because people talk about the Mount Rushmore, the 4 NBA players in the Mount Rushmore, right? Give me Brandon Steiner's 4 NBA coaches Mount Rushmore, then Brandon Steiner's 4 college coaches Mount Rushmore.
It's easy.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be a little biased. I'm going to go with Pat Riley.
This is NBA now.
NBA, yeah, NBA. Got to go with him.
Not biased. I think that's correct.
I got to give Phil Jackson a spot, even though people would disagree. I got to put Red R back in there, And I know you're not going to like this one, but I'm going to go with Chuck Daly, just because I'm a big fan. On the college one, it's a little easier because the NBA is so hard because the pieces, but the college is more responsible for the.
So you're leaving out Popovich on the NBA?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm leaving out Popovich.
Okay.
He just needs to be nicer.
Okay.
But he is a great coach.
Okay.
But I'm not.
Okay. All right. No. There's
I'm
no
not-
consensus on this.
I like Daly. I mean, I like
Okay.
Daly for what he accomplished
Okay.
with an insane team. On the college end, I'm going right. Coach Knight, number one. Changed the game, consistent, never got in any trouble, no cheating. I put Coach K number two. I'm thinking the guy who coached Western Kentucky, the Western Kentucky, the first black team that beat Kentucky,
No, that's not what. That's UTEP. Don Haskin.
Don Haskin.
What? You're putting Don Haskins?
No, I'm giving you an honorable mention.
Okay, no,
Because
I'm
that's
asking
a
you to
big-
four. I'm not asking you
Yeah.
honorable mentions.
I got to
man.
go number three with Wooden.
Yeah.
And then I know you're not going to like this pick, but I'm going with Boeheim because, especially the way things are going, how he's, the zone and how he has perfected that and changed it and the longevity.
Okay. Now, it's not a question of liking it. I think I would agree with three of those. Boeheim I would agree with. But here's the deal with Boeheim. When I started the film, I had to interview the older
put Rick
people
Pitino in there
first.
too. Yeah.
Had to interview the older people first because clearly. So the first interview I did was with Jack Ramsay.
Oh, wow.
I mean, in his home in Naples, Florida, his body is riddled with cancer. He sat there for 4 hours and 95% lucid, and it was a blessing to hear about
He's
his
unbelievable.
systems and that Portland team. And
Imagine if
everything
Walton doesn't
about
get hurt.
Dynasty, minimum 3 championships, maybe the 4th. The year that Magic beat Philly, that they could have, if they're healthy, they could have won.
He was
right?
all class,
At
though,
least
Ramsay,
3.
though.
So Ramsey's my first interview.
Okay.
From there, I met Dolph Shays' son at an NBA All-Star weekend, and so I went up to Syracuse to interview Dolph Shays at his home, and I'm sure you knew him.
Oh yeah, and Danny.
And Dolph Shays, lovely man. For people that don't know, top 50 of all time, one of the great scorers, wins an NBA championship in '54 with Syracuse, coaches Wilt with Philly, from NYU, starts college at 16. He was a genius, right? And he's taking care of his ill wife, and he was so gracious. And from there, and then he passed. And then I went to Syracuse. I had never seen the Syracuse training center or anything.
Mello Center.
And it was unbelievable. I interviewed Boeheim there. Now, until Syracuse lost against Kentucky in the mid-'90s at Meadowlands.
Kentucky, that was 96.
Okay, I was there. I
Me
was
too.
there. It's the only Final Four I've ever been to, right? I didn't like Boeheim because years ago I met him and he was sort of nasty, right? But when I watched, how about this? When I watched him lose, I said, this guy is a hell of a coach. He's a hell of a coach. And I told him this because when they lost that game to Kentucky and they won the night before, I think they beat
UMass.
UMass.
Yeah,
Okay. Kentucky beat Mississippi State. I saw him in his huddle, and he didn't have a lot of players. He had this kid Sims, was 6'7", a bulky kid. He had a white kid shooter, an Italian name I forget, right? Lean, and he was teaching. He never even had a board. He just spoke to them and spoke.
He's a
to
great
them.
timeout coach, by the way.
Spoke to
One
them.
of the great.
And they almost pulled that game out. Kentucky
Yeah.
had 7 pros on that team. And from that moment on, I became a big Boeheim fan. So here's the most interesting thing. You said the zone. This is what I love about the movie. I love about what I learned. So I coach a lot AAU to this day. Major talent. We got 2 guys in the pros now.
The Wrens.
Yeah, the Wrens, right? We're only 7 years old. I said, we're talking to Boeheim about his zone, and here's what he said to me. I thought it was so brilliant because the game's so simple, man. The game's
And
so
he's
simple.
so simple.
And he's so simple. I said, tell me what the difference is between, your 2-1-2 and
Oh, boy.
your 2-3 traditional 2-1-2, and I said, well, and I said, how do you have the discipline to stay in that zone? And here's what he said. I'll never forget it. He says, Dan, when you're playing man and you're getting burnt, you call a timeout, you make an adjustment, right? Yeah, of course. When I'm in my 2-3 and we're getting burnt, I call a timeout and I make an adjustment. All that adjustment is sometimes this guy needs to move 2 feet back. This guy needs to move 7 inches to the right. That guy needs to stay another foot on this way. That's the adjustment. It's the same thing.
And it's
how
actually,
simple and brilliant.
And more mentally trying than people give it credit for. You got to be a thinker on the court because you're anticipating where it's going, not only where it is.
Well, look, Krzyzewski, the guy that runs the Wrens for me, he's one of the great young men I've ever met, a guy named Andy Borman, right? Younger than you, great guy, right? He's Krzyzewski's nephew.
Really?
Played for Duke, 2001. He's
Coach Krzyzewski's legendary.
From the Midwest. So it's like I have Mike Krzyzewski running the Wrens, right? I mean, no, it is. It is. He's like a superhuman being, this kid, and as is Krzyzewski. I'd vote for Krzyzewski for president. Not even close.
He's unbelievable.
Not even close. As I would Pat Riley, as I would John Thompson, as I would Michelle Roberts, Adam Silver. I mean, we could do a little better than we got, right? Krzyzewski hates zones. What's he done the last 2 years?
He's been playing it.
That's right.
He's a master.
But that's the idea of coaching, right? You got to be flexible enough. If you're so stubborn and you got to play your system that you come up with and that's all you do, ain't going to work.
Yeah.
Ain't going to work.
You put something in the film about the fight in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the inside of that, because that was kind of one of those moments where the NBA kind of changed.
Yes.
And Stern. You interviewed Stern, I imagine.
Yeah, Stern, Silva,
right.
Russ Granick. I mean, everyone. In
Stern,
Test.
The smartest guy you've ever... I mean, one of the smartest...
One of the smartest people. Adam Silver and I have been... We met through David many, many years ago, and Adam, we're very, very close. I love Adam. And I think one of the reasons that basketball has exploded is because Stern, obviously, and then Adam, it's sort of this perfect succession.
You put him in a good position, too.
And it was the perfect person, and he paid his dues, different personalities, different leadership styles. But here's what they share. 3 things. Both have tremendous intellects, right? About a lot of things. Both have unbelievable work ethics. Adam said to me the other day, we're talking about some organization that I won't mention. He says, Dan, those guys think they work hard, right? People think they work hard. What does that mean, man? You know this.
I know
Let's
it.
say this out loud right here.
I've been in Adam's office. He goes, I'm here till like midnight.
No, but
I'm
let's say
getting
this.
calls.
Let's not even talk about Adam. Let's talk about this right now for anyone that wants to be successful in this world. If you're not working when you're starting out 90 to 100 hours a week, don't even talk to me, man. If you think that's weird, forget about it, man.
I can't agree with. I can't. I mean, it's amazing how people think they're gonna pop in for 40 hours and everything's gonna
40 hours. I remember when
I was just getting my throat cleared in 40 hours.
Man, I would go. I lived in Park Slope, worked for this PR firm before I started my own. I'd leave my house at 5 o'clock in the morning and take the train from Flatbush Avenue to 6th Avenue in Manhattan. The hookers were still out on Flatbush Avenue, man. And one time I remember I got a doctor's appointment. I left the office at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought it was like 9 in the morning, man. And I looked at the people. I said, "Are you kidding me? People are leaving at 5 o'clock."
I got home yesterday at 5:30.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, but now you can afford to do that, man.
But I'm saying, I maybe I get home at 5:30, like, I didn't even recognize the place.
That's exactly right. That's 100%.
I never get home at 5:30.
And now, I don't know.
And I can if I wanted to, but I don't even know how to do that.
But see, that's why I love hiring young people for my films. I love it. I love it because when you meet them, because first of all, when you get old, you there's a lot of things that I don't know of anymore. Like they mention this type of music or that type of thing. I'm like,
you need to surround yourself with youth. Yeah.
So I have my 2 major producers were 27 years old, and now one is working for Simmons and one is working for the same podcast that Woj Owens works at. They got great jobs. I love that. The other ones at PBS. So we took care of them, and but they bring something to the table. But when they see how hard you have to work, because people knock this generation, right? Oh, they don't work hard, they expect so much. I have no idea if that's true or not.
I don't think it's true.
Neither do I.
I think there's a little bit of a miss. I think there's a little miss
too.
with the kids that are around 30 years old to 35 now.
Yeah.
I love this generation right now.
Yeah.
The kids in college, high school, in their early 20s.
Right.
Oh my God, these kids don't stop.
They
don't stop.
It has to be,
They have
man.
but listen, even when I was a kid, and I was a very hard worker since I'm 10.
Yes.
But there were always some lazy kids that want to do anything.
Well,
back
of course. And by the way,
mean-
forget you. I grew up in a counterculture, so I mean, I love my friends. They're still my friends to this day. But like, these are guys that could have been giants in their field, right?
Yeah.
But they just didn't want to work.
They don't want to work.
You know, they didn't want to
Yeah.
work. And even now, you know, I see, I coach the Wrens. I have the Wrens. There's a whole lot of dudes out there, man. Like, they think like people like, you know, owe them something, man. That ain't the way it goes, man.
It's not going to happen.
You know, it ain't gonna
and what's a
happen,
shame, you see it in basketball, the difference between being a great pro or even a superstar are fractional.
Okay, here's another thing. There's a scene in the film called The Genius Gene. When you're so great,
Yeah.
a LeBron James, a Bill Russell, an Oscar Robertson, are you born with a genius gene? Or are you a genius on the floor, or is that something developed, a Larry Bird? Are you born with it, or is it developed? That's the question of the scene. What do you think?
I think it's developed.
Developed.
Yeah. I think you can develop it. You can develop the genius. I think we all have a certain genius to all of us.
So you're also a baseball guy. So why is it? Let's put why Willie Mays, was he obviously born much more gifted than
Yes.
99.9%, right? Born with it. Were there other Willie Mayses out there that never developed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's probably both.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. The question was not answered. Bill Russell said because I consider him a genius on the court. He said he wasn't. But how about this? And here's how I thought of this, because we were talking about this beforehand, about Paul Simon. You know, one of my closest friends, I love him to death. And he wrote Sounds of Silence. He's 21 years old.
He's a genius.
Well, I said to him, Paul, one day, I said, Paul, do you think you're a genius? And he's very thoughtful, and he didn't comment for a while. He says, no, I think I was born with a gift. And he walks around, not like me and you, and he hears sounds. That's his gift. And then he was able to take advantage of it. So he said he's not a genius. It's hard to define genius. So now with Russell, I said, do you think you're a genius? Now listen to what this guy says. I don't think I'm a genius. But for many, many, many years, I remembered every play of every game that I ever played in.
You know what's funny? You say that. Hank Aaron said the same thing. I remember my stats in Little League, and he was 80 when I interviewed him. I remember my stats. I remember guys I was competing against, and I'm not going to lie, I was trying to beat everyone from the Little League, in minor league, and Major League. I watched Mays. I watched this one. I watched that one. I want to beat them, not only in home run category, every category.
But
And
Russell,
you remember them
every
all.
play.
Every play.
And then he
That's
said
crazy.
the pressure got too much. Now, that mind is different. It's different. And the other reason I thought of that, and you might have been there. Many years ago, ESPN, remember they did like the top 50 athletes of all time, top 30, and they had the introductory press conference at the ESPN Zone
Yeah,
restaurant,
yeah.
and I was there. Were you there?
No.
On stage, they had 5 people on stage. Russell, Jim Brown, Martina, Carl Lewis, and Gretzky on stage. And I'm looking at them. No one's saying a word yet. They were different. I could see mentally, put aside all the bullshit in the media, all the imperfections that we all have, right? All of the other issues. How do you explain those 5 athletes? If you're talking about a chef as a genius, or a dancer as a genius, or a painter as a genius,
Is it about finding your gift and then
excelling?
exploring it?
I think you. taking advantage of it. Ben Jobe, who I said I dedicate the film to, an old Southern coach, man, refers to himself as a, that's how he referred to him, as a teacher. I'm just a country boy. Far from it. He'd say, Danny, the worst word in the English language is potential. He says the pool holes are filled with potential.
I was just in Mount Rushmore last week.
Yeah.
Which
wow.
Oh boy, I don't know what was going on in South Dakota, but give me your Mount Rushmore in college basketball players.
4?
Give me 5.
Okay. That's a little easy.
And I'll give you an honorable mention, and then same thing with the pros.
Okay. College players. Kareem, Walton, David Thompson, Russell, Oscar, honorable mention, Bill Bradley.
So no Bird, no Magic.
No. Not even close. Bird never won, as great as he is in college.
True. Okay. I respect it.
David Thompson revolutionized the game.
Oh, there's no question.
Right?
Guy was taking quarters off the top of the backboard.
Revolutionized the game. The alley-oop above the rim. People were doing it, but that's him. And he beats Walton. Walton wins 88 in a row. Unbelievable. Kareem wins 3 in a row. Oscar, I don't even put Pistol down there because Pistol never won, right? Oscar faced so much. Russell wins 55 in a row. I hate to leave Bradley off because Bradley,
Princeton,
Michigan.
Yeah.
Come on. That's my Mount Rushmore college players. Thank you for asking. Who's yours?
No. Give me pros. Give me NBA.
Oh, okay. I'll give you 4.
Okay.
I'm only going to give you 4 on that.
That's it?
Yeah. Well, 4 is Mount Rushmore. I give you Jordan, greatest ever, in my opinion. Jordan, Russell, Wilt, and LeBron.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm not with you on that at all.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'm starting off with my captain, my coach, and my point guard, Magic Johnson.
Yeah, go ahead.
To me, you have to take him because he can play 5 positions and he does it all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to take from San Antonio, Tim Duncan is my power forward.
You're talking about Mount Rushmore. I'm not going by position.
You're saying
the 4 greatest of all time.
I have to take Tim Duncan anyway.
What are you talking about?
The man was dominant. The man was seamless.
What are you talking about?
I'm not taking him over Jordan or LeBron.
Are you picking your team, one guy at each position, or are you picking the 4 players on Mount Rushmore?
That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's a whole different subject.
First of all, I'm starting with Magic.
I'm getting
and then
horny.
I'm moving.
I like this person here. And the more you talk, the more I want a little. I'm gazing into her eyes. It might be a him, so I'm not that interested. But wow.
Yeah. We keep her around just in case you get a little lonely. Okay. But I'm going Magic, LeBron.
Magic, LeBron. Go ahead.
Chamberlain. And I know you're not going to like this one, but I got to go with Dr. J.
This is, you know what? Here's the deal. I love coming up here. I enjoy it very much. This is my favorite time that I've ever spent with you, right? You're a fucking moron, man.
You're not liking my
ridiculous,
you're not liking my Mount Rushmore,
Dr. J. I love Dr. J.
The guy changed the sport
over Bill Russell, over Michael Jordan. Oh, now you got to think.
Well, first of all, I was kind of diversifying my approach.
No, you're going by position.
I'm taking him over Bill Russell because, unfortunately, I didn't really get to see Bill play as much.
But you put Chamberlain on it.
I did because I saw Chamberlain play and I saw how dominant he was.
Russell beats him 11 years in a row, man.
Dr. J just was bigger than life. He's bigger than life.
Your generation, dude.
But of course, I like Jordan.
How can you leave Jordan off that? No.
Yeah. It's gonna be difficult.
Okay, now let's go to your team by position. You're all NBA team by position. Since you failed.
By the way, I
that
had
test.
Dr. J up here. Give me his Mount Rushmore.
Since you failed that test, no. I want you to go home tonight. I want you to think about this.
All
I want you to start thinking about living on purpose.
I want all of you to think about that.
Okay, and then come, give me a call Friday. Please have a great Thanksgiving. Give me a call Friday and rethink it. Then we're going to talk about, because we got to go soon. After this, your New York Knicks Mount Rushmore.
Oh boy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to get you in trouble here. Okay. Now.
You're not getting me in trouble because I know my backcourt right away.
Okay. Oh.
I'm going with Clyde and Earl.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe one of the best backcourts of all time.
Will you go Ewing or Reed?
No, I'm going with Ewing. Ewing's one of the greatest centers of all time. I like Willis Reed, all due respect. He limped on the court, and he was a great player.
Yeah.
But Patrick Ewing was a warrior. The man played defense, blocked shots, and was one of the first great offensive NBA centers that could score.
Now,
you don't see you disagree with that.
No. I don't
Thank
disagree
you.
with anything. I like Ewing a lot. But here's the intangible.
Okay.
Here's the intangible, which people need, which the intangible is this, and that's called leadership.
Yep.
That's called leadership. The Knicks don't win those 2 championships, no matter the talent, without the leadership of Willis Reed. They don't.
And the triple-double that Clyde pulled off in Game 7.
No, I'm not talking about what's on the what's apparent.
That's true.
What's apparent. I never understood, and I'm fascinated by this in the film, the championship team, the championship mentality. And you know when I first saw it? This is going to strike home to you. Years ago, when Joe DiMaggio passed, and the Yankees invited Paul to sing, what's the name of it? Wherever you go in Joe DiMaggio, at Yankee Stadium for his, after he passed. So I was with Paul, and this is in the heyday. Paul O'Neill was on that team, and great championship teams.
Oh, no question.
And Bernie Williams, and we went into the locker room. Joe Torre was the manager, and I never. There was something so dramatically different with that atmosphere.
There's no question.
You could feel it and see it. They were men. They got along.
There's a connection that the team has. Every championship team, we always would do a signing. And I'd always get right in the middle of it, and you could see the connections. And part of it is humorous. It's funny, but it's intimate. There's an intimacy.
Very good. And that's why there's only one champion. And my film explores a lot of those.
Any championship that really grabbed at you that was just one step above it all?
I pay attention to a lot of the championship teams that no one else does on purpose. Florida, 2 years in a row with Billy Donovan. Detroit with
Didn't probably get the props he deserved.
No.
You think?
He doesn't get it. Larry Brown's Detroit team. Dallas with Nowitzki and Kidd and those
How they win.
And they won, though, because there's that, it's leadership and it's a feeling, there were, when Walton gets hurt, well, Washington wins and Seattle wins. And those are wonderful moments, man. People don't pay attention to them, you know?
How did Golden State win that?
Oh, I have such a
Rick
big
Barry.
scene because Rick Barry.
Did you interview Rick?
Oh, I have a massive scene
Is that
on
interview
that.
still going on, or?
Massive scene on Golden State winning and the
Oh, my
brawls
God.
and beating them up and Reardon and Ricky Sobers but Rick Barry was Larry Bird before Larry Bird. People don't give him his credit. He's a difficult personality. Yes, he's odd.
My first guy that I ever dealt with, my first spokesman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, quirky, of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, yeah.
vain, but my God, what a player. And he
Assassin.
carried that whole team, and they believed in him, and Al Attles did a great job. And the next year, they got tired of Rick. So when they go into the finals of the West, it's all in the film, against Phoenix, young team, Alvin Adams, Ricky Sobers, Westfall, all of that. They go into the finals, and Ricky Sobers beats up Rick Barry, and the Golden State teammates didn't come to his defense. And that's why they lost. And then Phoenix goes to Boston in that great Game 5 triple overtime. It's a big part of the film.
That's
Big part of
huge.
the film.
I saw part of that.
Yeah.
That was
So-
awesome.
so
but
I-
you know what Rick told me? He goes, Brandon, the difference between me, when I was in my heyday and playing, where I could tell the winners and losers, I went home after a loss. I'm not saying I dwelled on it, but I thought about it, and I lived with that loss for a little while. I want to learn from it. A lot of guys, after they left the locker room,
No.
didn't
Rick
think
Barry
twice
is
about
a
it.
basketball genius. And he says in that scene, genius. He says it. He was a basketball genius. He completely obsessed. All right, but let's go back. You got Earl and Clyde in your backcourt. You're starting backcourt all Knicks. You're putting Ewing there. We had the discussion. Now, who are your forwards? That's a tough discussion.
Because do you need the DeBusschere, that grinder, the rebounder, or Lucas, and then you got to look at Bernard King. I mean, you got to respect Bernard. You got to put Bernard in there just as a perennial crazy scorer.
Oh,
I mean, you remember those days when you would actually sneeze and somebody across the court would say, "God bless you."
Yeah.
That's how few people were in the Garden.
Yeah.
In the
Right,
late '80s.
Absolutely. Well, no, by the way, that's a very interesting thing because, Lucas, I wouldn't put Lucas in that category because he played a couple different positions. I would put the mix. I'm glad you brought that up. To me, those two starting spots come down to Bradley, DeBusschere, and Bernard King. That's 3 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Different type of players. Interesting.
I go pick up Dave DeBusschere from the Garden, who was the president at the time. I was just getting going at Steiner,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm calling him relentlessly to do some appearances. You won't do them.
Yeah.
Finally, he says, "All right, fine. You sound like a good kid. I'll do it." And I pick him up on my Mustang, and how naive I was that I forgot how big he was. And I was in this Mustang. He goes, "I can't fit in this car."
Yeah.
And so he squeezes in, and by the end, I had him for an hour and a half drive. By the end, he goes, "Listen, you call me anytime you want. I'll just do these things just to have the drive with you."
Yeah.
My favorite Dave story.
People don't remember what an unbelievable player. I mean, the Knicks were going nowhere fast. They make that trade. They get DeBusschere. They move Bellamy. It was a good low post player. Howard Comar's a chucker. Good player though, and they get DeBusschere and they gel. And DeBusschere, my God, they'll have a whole scene on Bradley moving without the ball in the film. There's 4 different
Poetry
scenes
in
in
motion.
the film I call signature moves, where guys describe their hips, their eyes, their hands, their knees, their elbows, their mind in their signature moves. LeBron James, rim to rim. Kevin Durant playing off the double team. Chris Paul making the steal. Bill Bradley moving without the ball. Unseld on the outlet pass. Iverson on the crossover. Signature moves, man. 4 different scenes. Diana Taurasi on the 2. Curry on the 3. It's really great. So if you're into ball, man.
Your best crossover move you've ever seen? Is it Iverson?
I'd have to say, although it wasn't the first. I mean, the first time I started seeing guys cross over, Archie Clark is crossing guys over, man, But I had never seen, you ready for this? I remember where I was the first time I ever saw a guy dribble between his legs. I'm in the Garden, GO seats, college basketball.
GO seats is...
Yeah, discount seats, public school kids in New York City.
$5.
Right? Triple header. The Garden had triple headers. I go to the Garden.
3 basketball games for $5.
Right, sometimes less. And you were richer than me. And by the way, we used to sneak in the Garden all the time. Sneak in. I knew every
usher, ticket taker.
That's when you're in. I'm talking about sneaking in.
Well, the usher got you the better seat.
Yeah,
the
right.
ticket taker, $1 was.
And you can
were
still
in.
spot him. When I go to Knick games and some dude's sitting before us, I say to my wife, I say, "That ain't their seats, man." And then all of a sudden, you can spot him like that, man.
I never understood about buying an expensive ticket.
Yeah. So in my first movie, The Boys of Sanctuary Park, there's a scene where the guys are talking about, "You're too young for this." It's in the scene and there's footage. We used to sneak into the Garden, the new Garden, at a bowling alley in Penn Station.
I remember it well.
Right?
Yep.
You ready for this? It's in the movie. It's actually
that was at the upper level.
Correct. So you time your run. This is in the movie. There's no bullshit. The pins go up. You run down. You slide down there. You slide all the way down. You come into the food service, into the Harry M. Stevens freezer, and now you're in the Garden. In the movie, man.
I'm saying it now. You got to watch this. It's just amazing. Or Hoop Dreams, the book, right?
Basketball Love Story.
Basketball Love
Jackie
Story.
McMullen. Oral history of the game from the
If you're
film.
a friend of mine, you're probably getting this book for Christmas. I'm just saying. Pick it up today on Amazon. Dan, this has been amazing. I know we went too long, but it was worth it. I could talk hoops all day. Anyway, we'll try to get some responses to some of your questions and everything. Tell us what you think of the book. Tell us what you think of all these. There's 20 different shows, so tell me what you think. And
Get it on the ESPN app to this day, even though it's finished.
ESPN Plus.
ESPN Plus, whatever.
ESPN
I don't know
Plus.
anything about ESPN, man.
Plus.
Okay,
Get it
thanks.
right.
Okay.
But also, I'm sure there's some things he missed.
Oh, man.
We'll give him something to do later on, because he's probably looking for another project.
And just remember, Brandon Steiner's putting Dr. J and not Michael Jordan on his Mount Rushmore. needs serious consideration.
Yeah, that may be a blunder on my part. I'll admit it even now. I don't want to even own up to that, but I'm a big MJ fan. Michael knows it. I beat Michael. I beat Michael in a game of 4-on-4.
Okay, let's stop. Thank you very much for having me here.
Hey.